Hello and welcome to another video, ladies and gentlemen. What we have for today, the AMX 5120 top tier on Theobreville Ridge. This tank is a very much love-hate relationship. It's one I've never really got on with very well, but when you do seem to have good games in it, you have fantastic games. The current one I've got now is fully kitted out, everything you could ever want from a tank, top tier, hardly anything in it, and I have it fully upgraded. So I've got a 1000 horsepower engine, 65k speed limit. It is shit off a shovel. With the trade-off of that, you obviously have terrible armor. 100mm on the front, 80 on the side, and 60 on the rear. You can damn well assume that people are going to go straight through you, either with high explosive shells or any shells. But not always the case. This tank actually has armor on the front, which does bounce shells. Unfortunately, my driving doesn't quite count for that. Although the armor holds up to crashing into rocks, which, considering the style of driving there, is quite useful. It can bounce shells if you get the angles just right, and if people try to snapshot, if people don't get aims correctly, you can just ping for days, and it comes in handy. You'll see later on. Get spotted by a light tank straight away, the LTTB. Quick little snapshot. This is in the replay feature as well, so you won't get to see me actually sniping in. What you will get to see is just absolute decimation. A little bit more on the gun itself. This is the top gun, so it's 120mm. Isn't so bad. I have seen it in games like this. It doesn't really show itself too much, but you have to be careful with how you're aiming. If you find yourself firing against targets that are constantly bouncing your shells, you're going to run out of ammunition very quickly. You only get 60 in total, and I'm here with a little bit shorter of that. I might have got, oh no, I've got 4 HE shells, yeah, so there's a little bit on the full side, but the 4 HE very rarely used, and considering the reload time, if I'm ever going to come across a target that requires HE, such as a waffle, never going to really use it. They're just in there possibly to try and stop a base cap, you know, just in case it decides to go, no, you're going to bounce, because that will also happen, because reasons and wargaming and RNG. The actual armor penetration isn't too bad. You're looking around about 232mm on the standard round, 263 on the premium, and only 50 on the HE. Rate of fire is about 7.01. I think it's a 32-second reload time I have in them all. It's a fairly short interclip reload, so to speak. The shells in between are roughly the same as it takes for the aim to come in, maybe a little bit faster. So you do have to be careful on how quickly you want to fire. If you have the chance of hitting slap-sided targets, then by all means go for it. But because of the fact it's not got the most ideal reload in the world, considering other tanks that have autoloaders at this tier as well as tier 10, I would say make sure you aim your shots decent and in a straight line if you can do. If you can't, rush it, see what happens, you might get lucky, but I would advise against it. It trolls the hell out of you. 390m view range isn't too shabby, although its camera rating is going to let it down, so you can use it as a spotting tank. You can put on spotting equipment should you wish. Although again, not really something I would advise. It's not really a tank that you would go out spotting with, because if you do get spotted, people know you've got no armor, and they absolutely palmer you. And you've got always the chance of someone loading up a HE shell for whatever reason, and they'll just see you and think, oh, Christmas has definitely come early. And if you see a Death Star, run. Coming up against the IS, the Carnarvon and the E75. I'm taking shots into the IS because he's kind of covered from the other people and it's only what I can shoot. Ideally, I'm wanting to take guns out of the game. The IS has a pretty big gun, so it's going to go straight through my tank, as it's already seen. It takes off a large amount of health. I'm trying to get into a position whereby I can use the range and maybe the distraction of other teammates to put shots into him, get as much damage as possible, and then think about what I can do next. Moving around the bottom side, I don't want to be detected by the tank destroyers on the other side, so there is a T-28 that's not been spotted, I believe, who has shot at me, and there's also an AT-15. If they're not detected, I don't want to be in a position whereby this tank is going to highlight, hello, I'm here, shoot me. Going around the corner, there was a bit of good fortune. The tanks themselves have managed to track the E75, so I thought I'd be nice and help towards their op, and absolutely decimate. The RNG factor for this tank I find is annoying. I high rolled 454, then 484, but I only got like 300 on the IS, and that, I don't know why happens, is the easiest way of placing it. Unfortunately, I get a bit of an ammo rack issue by the hammer, but I take him out for it. I load up premium rounds here because I'm going to be facing off against the TDs, and I want to make sure that I'm going to penetrate. Fortunately, they're only the tier 8, so it's a fairly good chance of it going through, but I just want to make sure. The AT-15 finally becoming detected, although he does kind of have, well, I like to think he has some sort of cloaking device, because his commander hatch is a little bit difficult to hit, but it turns out, at least in the replay, it shows that I actually missed. The shot, when I looked at it, went straight through because RNG, ghost rounds, affects everything. We're not trying to push too far forward, and I don't want to keep covered from the left hand side. There's no artillery, which makes me like stupidly happy. And whilst you can't see on here, most of their team are more or less sat in E8 and E9, with the odd chance that someone is going to push forward because of the fact the flank has fallen. So I don't want to be in a position whereby I'm screwed. As you can see now, there's a couple of tanks that are coming over, the Centurion 7-1 and the STR behind, I believe it is. I'll have to wait for it to be detected to confirm. But again, I want to, oh, the SU-101, sorry. I want to try and keep in as much cover as possible. My reload is still going through, and the Centurion is barreling down the road. I'm not particularly an amazing amount of health, but neither is the Centurion in front of me. So now I've got 2 tanks to take care of, and again, I don't have the armour. Coming up to a point of my reload, I think, right, I need to get rid of the tank destroyer. I do have someone behind me, but it's unlikely they'll try and help me. Here I am, just taking a shot into the SU-101, taking him out. The Centurion, I don't know what he was doing. He seemed to be more not bothered so much about me. There's a beautiful example of the bounce, even with the APCR was firing. And he seemed to hesitate a lot. I'm on next to no health, and he can certainly kill me, but because of his hesitation and his didn't want to come around the corner until now, he does want to try and shoot at me, fails miserably, and ends up getting killed. I would definitely say if that was someone who was paying attention to the game in general, they would have probably aimed for me and taken me out. Certainly on the basis that they had a lot more health, they didn't need to rush anything. Fortunately, getting my 7 kills so far, he didn't check the radar and had a look into that, where I was actually a viable target to shoot over everyone else. The rest of the tanks are pretty much on that hill now. The 2 TDs I know are on the E7 or E8 side. You can't see it on the replay for some reason, but when you're actually in the game, you can see where people are without the need of me exiting this view and having a look. Load up APCR because I want to make sure that I go through targets going forward. I've used a lot of standard rounds. It's not been a requirement other than the T28 really to fire premium rounds at anything, because of the fact that it's just going to go through anyway. The penetration on the rounds and the fact that I'm hitting targets side on, big slap-sided targets, I'm always going to go through. But now's the time to really think, okay, I'll delve back into the APCR. I want to make sure that the shots actually hit, and if it is a tortoise that I come across, maybe I'll have a good chance of penning him. Unfortunately, the range between me and the tortoise kind of throws it into question as to whether I will, but I'll obviously have the best penetration chance by doing so. The 103, whilst you can't see it again because it's not in sniper view, slightly turned his tank to the right, allowing me to shoot the side of it, and it just went through like a knife through butter. 8th kill, 21 damaging total hits. It was just annihilating people. Thankfully, the people behind me who were actually on my team and pushed forward, the distractions they caused allowed me to do all of this. There's a lot of games where I play, if you were in a tank that can deal a lot of damage, say for example if it is an autoloader, not specifically this one but anyone, and you have people who can go forward, distract other people, and you can get loads of shots into the side, you can have high damaging games and actually be more of a useful feature, so to speak, to the team than anyone else. So you just take that into account, and if the opportunity arises, go for it. So we're looking back on the actual scoreboard as it comes up. Ridiculous kind of game. 4,119 without the ×2, over 8,000 with, 7,000 damage, block 390, so that was the Centurion shot that would have killed me. Got a nice mastery badge, Devastator, Top Gun obviously, and I believe that's the Bradley Walters medal as well. Just shy of the 2,000 base XP for the overall, what I like is a nice round number, but as far as I'm concerned, a very, very good game. So if you did like the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. There'll be a few more coming out whenever I have decent games in tanks that I haven't played in a very long time, and I'll be sure to pop them up. Thanks very much for watching, and cheerio.